70s hit that ruled radio then, and it still does. The story's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If music is important in your life, then become a part of this music community by subscribing below. By subscribing, you're part of the solution. Make sure to click on the instant notification button when you do so you never miss out on our daily content, always celebrating the best of the rock era. We want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, my favorite glasses I've ever worn. Put a message on the side, the message on the inside. You can design your own as well. Have them delivered right to your door. You're going to love it. Check them out at the link below. Now it's time for another edition of a number one in our hearts, where we discuss a song that is so great it should have been a number one hit on the Hot 100. The generation gap. That age-old divide between the young and old, between parents and their kids. The younger set thinks that parents are boring and uncool. That's the way it goes. The way they dress, the way they talk, the way that they think, the music that they listen to. My parents were boring and uncool just like their parents were. My kids, though, they really think I'm uncool. Even though my son had me come out for career day at his class and I spoke to him and they said, you know, your dad has the coolest job ever. And you know what? Even after that, my boy still thinks I'm uncool. Just it goes with the territory. What if our parents were actually as weirdly cool as we think we are? Imagine the shock or the horror of waking up in the middle of the night as a teenager and stumbling in on your parents, rolling around on the couch, rolling numbers, and listening to your records. Cheap Trick, lead guitarist and lyricist Rick Nielsen was 26 when he transported himself back 12 years to get into the head of a 14-year-old witnessing such an eye-opening encounter while composing Surrender, the masterful epic 70s teen anthem or traumatic teen nightmare, depending on your perspective. For me, it would have been like, catching my parents listening to Ozzy or the Smiths or heaven forbid, Anthrax, all of which they scolded me for listening to, calling the music evil. Or were my parents playing a game, hiding me and my siblings from their secret life? The ultimate mind blower for Rick Nielsen was discovering that mommy and daddy were covert members of the Kiss Army, doing the unthinkable, taking his Kiss records out. Talk about the very definition of devil's music back in the 70s. Every parent was worried about their kids listening to Kiss and becoming Satan worshipers. I always had a sneaking suspicion, though, that when my dad took away my Anthrax tape or my Ozzy album, that he was rocking out to them himself when everybody else was dead asleep. The evolution of the Cheap Trick classic began with a catchy line that just rolled off Rick Nielsen's tongue. Mommy's all right, daddy's all right, they just seem a little weird. Daddy's all right, they just seem a little weird. He got back in the zone late one night while playing an unplugged electric guitar, riffing on a groove, and then he started singing to himself, "Mother told me yes, she told me I'd meet girls like you." The words hit Rick like a nursery rhyme, but as Rick clarified, it was a rock nursery rhyme for somebody in high school that was wearing a leather jacket. Love that. Many of Rick's relatives were involved in military service during World War II, including his Aunt Ruth, who was the inspiration behind the line in the second verse. Mommy served in the wax in the Philippines. WAX being the acronym for Women's Army Corps. Rick's mother wasn't a member of the WAX, but Annie Ruth was. The next line, "Now I had heard the WAX recruited old maids for the war." Was a revision, replacing ill-advised sexist slurs that Rick wrote in his original script. Rick Nielsen has written many cool Cheap Trick songs. Besides Surrender, Rick composed I Want You to Want Me, Dream Police, Voices, and If You Want My Love, among many others. As a songwriter and performer, Nielsen has a penchant for the unconventional. Take this passage from Surrender, for example. Just the other day, I heard a soldier falling off some Indonesian junk that's going around. I can't recall a song with a lyric remotely close to that subject matter. And the way that Rick works that unusual line into the melodic structure of Surrender is just extremely clever and very cool. On stage, Rick Nielsen is a rock and roll phoenix. The way he tirelessly bounds around the stage with his turned up baseball cap, checkered pants, and bow tie, he's just one heck of a showman. Rick's on-stage persona is as big as the sound of his fierce guitar playing and the highlight of any Cheap Trick concert. Cheap Trick actually formed in 1973 in Rockford, Illinois, with Randy Hogan as the original lead singer, but was quickly replaced by the amazing, truly amazing Robin Zander as lead vocalist, Bunny Carlos on drums, Nielsen on lead guitar, and bassist Tom Peterson. It was a comment by Peterson after a Slade concert that inspired the band's name. Describing what he felt about Slade's performance, Peterson quipped that the band used every Cheap Trick in the book. Cheap Trick played any bar, nightclub, bowling alley, or warehouse that could accommodate them throughout the Midwest. They rehearsed in Nielsen's father's music shop in Rockford before they were signed to Epic Records in 1976. After signing with Epic and establishing a solid reputation for their riveting live shows, Cheap Trick spent years opening for bands like Queen, The Kinks, even the ungodly Kiss. The band's breakout success did not come from the Midwest, though, or anywhere else in America. It came from their enormous popularity in Japan. The Japanese audience worshipped Cheap Trick. It was the live LP Cheap Trick at Budokan, or Live at Budokan, as it's often referred to. That's the one that catapulted the group to international headliner status. I mean, for its unbridled passion, its raw intensity, and its sonic power, Cheap Trick at Budokan is one of the best live albums of the rock era, bar none. Selling over 3 million copies, Cheap Trick at Budokan was recorded in Tokyo over 2 sold-out shows, April 28th and April 30th, 1978. With an audience of 12,000 screaming Japanese fans at each show, nearly drowning out the band at times, Cheap Trick mania in Japan was and is still huge. It's like what people think of the Hoff in Germany. Surrender is a standout track on Cheap Trick at Budokan. The tune was released as a single in '78 from Cheap Trick's third studio LP, Heaven Tonight, but it was originally recorded in 1976. Although it was available to be included on either their first 2 studio albums, it didn't make the cut. The band didn't think too highly of Surrender initially. Even Nielsen, as the author of the tune, didn't feel it was anything special. Surrender was just one of 26 tracks that were considered for Cheap Trick's self-titled debut LP, and the band passed over it. When it finally made it onto a Cheap Trick record as a track, like I said, on Heaven Tonight, the label selected it to be the lead single. Surprisingly, it stalled on the Billboard Hot 100 at, ready for this, number 62. Anyway, following the euphoria of Cheap Trick at Budokan and the top 10 success of the live version of I Want You to Want Me, American radio stations began to play Surrender, the live version, which Nielsen actually prefers, and the studio version from Heaven Tonight. Surrender became one of the greatest hits of classic rock radio ever. And its anthemic, Mommy's All Right, Daddy's All Right, they just seem a little weird. That chorus has captivated pop culture.
Your mama's all right, your daddy's all right, but just seem a little bit weird. Surrender.
Cheap Trick had a number 1 smash on the Billboard Hot 100 with their power ballad The Flame in 1988. Man, I gotta tell you, what a vocal performance by lead singer Robin Zander, who really could go toe-to-toe with just about any singer at his peak. The Flame is remembered as one of the great power ballads of the 80s, for sure. But Cheap Trick's signature song is most definitely Surrender, with stellar artistry from the core members of Cheap Trick, The incredible lead vocal by Robin Zander, like I said, one of the elite lead singers of the rock era. Oh, and Zander also played rhythm guitar on the same kind of Rickenbacker that John Lennon used to play. Tom Peterson hitting a really cool tone with a 12-string bass. The steady Bunny Carlos on drums, highlighted by his jolting intro. Nielsen speared a guitar riff on a Les Paul through an orange amp. It was the first orange amp ever built. And of course, let's not forget Jay Winding, who delivered the synthesizer track that underscored the song's irresistible melody. Surrender also features some of the most famous key changes when the tune transitions from B flat to B for 2 verses, and then it moves to C when Zander roars, "Whatever happened to all this season's losers of the year?" Approximately 2 minutes and 20 seconds into the number, that dynamically turbocharges energy for the song's climactic "Surrender but don't give yourself away" refrain. Surrender was placed in the soundtrack of the 1979 crime drama, see if you remember this, crime drama Over the Edge, that featured the debut of one Matt Dillon. It was also used in the soundtrack of the 1999 movie Detroit Rock City, along with Daddy Daycare. It was in the closing credits of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And the opening and ending of the 2015 film Pixels.
What? I suck.
Adam Sandler, of course, such a fan of classic rock. Surrender has been heavily synced in TV as well, including in episodes of Scrubs, Cold Case, Supernatural, South Park, One Tree Hill, New Girl, Californication, and Life in Pieces. It's also a video game sensation, using the soundtrack for Guitar Hero 2, PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, and the EA Video Skate. The first song I ever played on Guitar Hero was this song. Not much of a gamer, but playing this song was so fun, and it introduced my kids to Cheap Trick. Rick Nielsen has done jam sessions as a guest guitarist performing Surrender during live sets with so many bands, Pearl Jam, Foo Fighters, and Green Day. It's a favorite with rockers from all generations. Rick Nielsen definitely knows how to tap into the psyche of the youth, at least for many of us 70s and 80s kids. Cheap Trick is just one of those classic bands that everybody can agree on, like the Cars, They transport us to the best of our times, our adventurous and carefree youth. That's what rock and roll is all about. Surrender by Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, Cheap Trick is beloved around the world, bridging the generation gap as a transcendent rock standard that may have stalled in the Hot 100, but all these years later, it is still #1 in our hearts, played all the time. By the way, the top 5 songs on the chart the week that Surrender peaked at number 62 were Hopelessly Devoted by Olivia Newton-John was at number 5, Hot Blooded by Foreigner was at 4, Boogie Oogie Oogie by A Taste of Honey was at 3, Three Times a Lady by the Commodores was at 2, and Grease by Frankie Valli was at number 1. 4 of those 5 songs you think about, they're still played on classic rock and classic pop stations across the nation, along with Surrender. But I have to say that Cheap Trick wins out because they have one of the greatest band logos ever. Leave us a comment about this awesome song and this legendary band. What are your memories of it? Gotta share them. If you like this content, we do invite you to be a part of this music community. We'd love to have you. To get this on vinyl, to get Cheap Trick's merch, including their amazing logo, click on the Amazon links below. If you'd like to hear the song, click on our playlist. And you can become an honorary producer by joining our Patreon. We'd love to have you do that. That helps us keep the music alive. Check it out below. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.